Welcome to the Super Shay Gaming Podcast. I am the Super Shay alongside my tag team partners,
1211,
and
ACMS Gaming coming in from a hopefully working mic.
And we are finally back. We had a lot going on over the course of the beginning of this year. We had to take a break. We were in our console series going through all of the Nintendo consoles first. And we had just finished out the N64. We had a few losses in our family, which kind of took us out of the game for a little bit, but we are officially back.
To summarize in less than 60 seconds, life happened. It sucked.
Yeah, it did. But today we are back, and we are going to be discussing the Nintendo GameCube, the fourth video game home console made by Nintendo, which obviously the predecessor was the N64. And we discussed that in our prior podcast.
Now, of course, to give a little fun fact, but this is the day and age where Nintendo decided to officially get rid of the D-pad for a little bit and just focus on having control sticks. Now, nowadays, we have all of the options for controllers, from a D-pad to control sticks and trigger buttons, but Nintendo officially adopted a design that did not require a third hand.
Heck, even nowadays we have controllers that are customizable with you can take out control sticks, put new ones in if you get stick drift on the old ones, and you're even able to change D-pad its designs, like from a circle to the original up, down, left, right.
He's talking about an Xbox controller, but we'll get to that when it's time.
PlayStation allowed for customizable.
We'll get there later. We'll talk about PlayStation another time.
Yeah.
But the GameCube was released in Japan September 14th, 2001. It was held off till November 18th of 2001 for North America. In Europe, they didn't get it until May of 2002. Its introductory price was $199.
That's about $200, and nowadays that would be around $800 to $900.
The GameCube had many features that other Nintendo video game consoles did not have prior. For instance, it was the first Nintendo console to officially support internet play, playing together without wires. It could also connect to the Game Boy player to allow special features, and it could play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advanced games.
Now, to give a little fun fact, but the GameCube actually, was Nintendo's second ever console to have special editions. First being the Nintendo 64. But
talking about special editions, there are special versions of the GameCube, like the clear Donkey Kong version of the GameCube. Clear green. It's super rare. Not many were made. And collectors would pay dime a dozen for it. They would pay like $1,000 for one. That's how rare I think it is.
Now, of course, the discs are a lot more compact and small, but this was their own custom disc. Because, let's just say, to have a console that you can carry around requires a lot of functions to be edited and stuff.
And then later on, we'd be talking about the Wii, but I'm pretty sure Nintendo was wrong about this size being need to be small.
Well, it was the first console that Nintendo put out that used a disc instead of a cartridge. And obviously, since then they've gone back.
Except they're more compact cartridges, but shockingly enough, they never actually got rid of cartridges to begin with. We can actually talk about the Game Boy Advance as well, because as the the GameCube and the Game Boy Advance actually worked along side by side of each other.
Which was a really, really fun feature that they were able to put out.
Yeah. To give a little bit of insight, the Game Boy Advance is a part of a lineage line known as the Game Boy series. The Game Boy was Nintendo's first ever handheld console that could play any kind of game that had to do with the Game Boy cartridges.
And we'll be covering that in a separate podcast as well. We'll cover the Game Boys.
But
I do want to throw a little bit of trivia out at you. I will give you some extra cool points if you can tell me what the code name of the Game Boy was.
oh, the code name in the Game Boy?
Or not the Game Boy, the GameCube.
Oh, it's called Project Dolphin.
Yeah, it was Dolphin was the code name for it.
Heck,
Yeah.
you wanna know something?
Bonus cool points go to you.
Dolphin, you know how the code name for that was Dolphin?
Mm-hmm.
Pikmin 1, what was the name of the ship?
The SS Dolphin.
And what was the code name for the GameCube?
It was Dolphin.
There we go.
Now, funny enough, I'll give a little bit of trivia myself. Nintendo actually introduced a special chip just for the GameCube. What was it called?
Oh, God. You got me. What is it?
The Dolphin chip.
The Dolphin chip.
Oh my god.
Figures. Game Boy controllers had 2 analog sticks in many games. One of them
Game
was
Boy?
used to control a character, while the other was used to control the camera, or some other type of secondary function.
Now, of course, the second stick was actually called the ironically enough, C-stick.
Nintendo later released a wireless version of the controller called the Wavebird. Instead of wires, it used RF signals to communicate with the console and was powered by standard AA batteries.
Funny enough, but they wanted the wireless controllers from then on.
Wavebird?
Yes.
People just call it the Waver. Anyways, you said Game Boy.
GameCube.
Yeah, he meant GameCube. Anyways,
So, some of the popular games for GameCube. Luigi's Mansion.
oh, classic.
Now,
Very
I tried to make a lure video on this, but my mic cut out halfway through.
Which I think was an absolutely wonderful video until it cut out. Because, I mean, you hit all kinds of points that I don't think a lot of people even knew.
Well, to give a little bit of insight, Luigi's Mansion is actually Luigi's first ever solo game. And because back then it was all either Mario or Mario Brothers. So Luigi never really got any sort of solo games. But nowadays he has quite a few solo games, and some games are actually all about him, even if Mario is included.
I think it's like 6 now.
Another one of the popular games is Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime 2 Echoes.
Now, Metroid Prime is actually an interesting type of series because it's only ever had 3 canonical games. Metroid Prime 2, and Metroid Prime 3. There's supposedly no news about Metroid Prime 4, despite it being teased all the way back in 2017.
Also, the GameCube held the Pikmin series, Pikmin 1 and 2.
Now,
I love Pikmin.
yeah, he loves Pikmin, but to give a little bit of insight, Pikmin is the only game series to actually really push the console to its limits. 100 entities is all at once, 1 or 2 extra captain entities, and then a bunch of monsters as well. The game was literally pushed to its absolute limits, to the point where they actually had to develop a special programming for these games alone.
So, to give more insight on what he's saying, the GameCube was pushed to the limits.
Now, the official amount of entities that can actually be held on the GameCube is 125. This number is not a random number. fact, there was actually a tech demo for what eventually became Pikmin called Mario 125, where there were a bunch of Marios on the screen, and on top of this giant Monopoly ripoff board, or showing off how many entities could appear on the console at once. The max limit was 125.
And you can't forget about the ship parts, the treasures, and later on in the series, fruits. You cannot forget about those.
And then we come to the most popular game on the history of the GameCube, Super Smash Bros. Melee.
Okay, so let me give a bit of insight on Super Smash Bros. This series started all the way back on the Nintendo 64, known as Super Smash Bros., in which you had a few characters: Mario, Samus, Link, and Captain Falcon, and Fox McCloud, Ness from Earthbound, Kirby, Yoshi, Luigi, and Jigglypuff and Pikachu as well. Basically, all the cult classic characters. They made out the original eight. I think it was either 8 or 12 character roster.
And it was kind of Nintendo's answer to like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
Now, Super Smash Bros. Melee is known as the best Smash game ever, despite its rushed development. The game itself isn't perfect, and I think it was mostly incomplete, because I'm pretty sure there was a lot of things that Nintendo wanted to add to Melee, but they couldn't because of a time restraint. So, we had a bunch of characters, including Peach and Bowser making an appearance. There's Zelda and Sheik as well. Oh, but there was also one other character, Young Link. He was a character that only appeared in Melee and hasn't appeared since until Ultimate. He suffered quite a lot through Smash, not gonna lie.
And then we come to one of my favorite game series of all time, The Legend of Zelda. The GameCube held the titles The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
Now, funny part is Wind Waker was actually highly hated because of the cartoonish looks. Nowadays, it's beloved. Strange how time works on things, huh?
Right?
And Twilight Princess is actually something that Nintendo, the company itself, actually hates because they didn't want to make it.
And why did they not want to make it?
Because of Wind Waker.
So, something I want to say. People still hate the remake for the Wii U of Wind Waker.
Well, to be fair, they had to change quite a lot of things, so I can understand it, but let's not get into Wii U stuff. We'll get
Not
there
just
when we
yet.
get there.
We'll get there. They also had Super Mario Sunshine.
This game is actually interesting because... No, just be quiet for a moment. Super Mario Sunshine is actually the first ever game Mario game ever to include actual voice acting.
Really?
Yeah, the characters were fully voiced, even Mario. But he was more of the quiet, introverted type. At least back then.
And all in all, it was a fun game. I mean, I enjoyed it. It wasn't quite on the level of some of the other Mario games, but it was still really, really enjoyable.
64 is still beloved no matter what.
Also, ironically enough, one of the best Paper Mario games out there was actually put onto this console.
Thousand Year Door.
Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door.
Yep. Yes.
A game that was beloved by many, and yet was on a commercial failure of a console.
And it also held other Mario titles such as Mario Party 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Wow.
And it had Mario Kart Double Dash.
Which, of course, also brought in a few memorable tracks.
And some controversy of family rings inside of the character's family.
I don't think that was actually a thing.
Oh no.
Also on the console was Wave Race Blue Storm,
Unknown game.
and one of my other favorite series, Animal Crossing.
Oh yeah, this was the first console to ever have Animal Crossing.
Oh, fun fact. Animal Crossing on the GameCube is not actually for the GameCube. It was actually originally meant for the Nintendo 64. That's why the characters all look like they all came out of the Nintendo 64. Animal Crossing by itself was meant to be on the Nintendo 64. In fact, there's actually a Japanese version that actually is on the Nintendo 64.
Alright, can I speak now?
Go ahead.
Animal Crossing, the original, had the most sassiest character ever. You remember her? The pig?
Oh god, what was her name?
I think it was like Sui or something.
Susie?
No, not Susie. It's like 3 letters, space, then an E. I saw it today, but oh my gosh.
Well, and the game itself was just incredibly fun.
Yeah.
Like, I spent hours and hours trying to catch every type of fish, every type of bug. I really, really put time into that game.
Also, the entire game you're in debt.
Yes. Well, not the entire game, because you pay off your debts.
Oh yeah, and then the game would crash.
I never had a crash.
Well, like, you pay off the entire debt, every house upgrade, you get it all. The game would just crash.
Well, actually, that's actually part of a glitch that happened during that Animal Crossing speedrun for 100%.
Yes.
The game doesn't actually crash, it just crashes when you get a series of events.
Yeah. And your series of events is when you pay off the debt.
And one of the in-game events also plays a cutscene, and it overwrites the debt paid cutscene, and if you're teleported to a specific location, it crashes the game.
Huh.
The Nintendo GameCube did not do what Nintendo hoped it would. It ended up selling just 21 million units.
Which is still a lot.
Worse than the N64.
Which is sad. Because this is one of my favorite consoles.
GameCube sold poorly because it used special discs that no one else used and looked like a toy to many young adults.
Really?
Yeah, it had that plastic box look. It just looked like a toy.
Just listen to the sound of its booting. It's just heavenly.
Oh, fun fact, whenever you boot it up, if you press down specific buttons as you turn it on, it plays funnier versions of the startup sound.
Oh yeah, those secrets.
It also had the removable memory cards. And that was a new thing for them.
In fact, it had 2 memory card slots, and there were actually quite a few bugs with demo discs that would be sent out. Some of them actually deleted your save data.
It was a 32-bit console with IBM PowerPC, 486 megahertz. And it was, I think they were kind of ahead of their time. As I've always stated with Nintendo, they've always been ahead of their time, and they do things differently than all the other game systems, and I think that's what's kept them riding high all the way through.
For example, this is a later thing that we'll talk about, the Virtual Boy. It is Nintendo's first take at making something that's like virtual reality.
It flopped and was actually
Cancer causing.
No, not cancer causing. And that's actually a fib and a lie told by people to not buy it.
Oh.
It was actually more eye straining than anything.
Well, it was entirely red.
Yeah.
It had some decent takes of games, but it didn't get many games because they stopped producing it. The only reason why it flopped is because Nintendo didn't give enough people to work on it.
Well, actually, no, it flopped because of the color that they chose for you to look into. The entire thing was just red, outright.
But it would have been better if they had more funding.
And sadly, the GameCube came to an end in 2007. It was discontinued in Japan on October 28th. And North America was the last to discontinue it, and that happened June 15th, 2009.
Oh.
Yeah.
Before I was born.
Fun fact. Since we're actually reaching the end of the GameCube, shockingly.
Really?
Yeah, there actually isn't really much to talk about the GameCube, except for the fact that it had special editions and it even included a few exclusive games.
We should go on for hours about it.
Well, no.
Look, that would be its own podcast.
Now, to be fair, there are quite a few things about the GameCube, but most of them are actually just in-game secrets and stuff. With Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, the Happy Lucky Lottery is actually a scam. The entire thing is actually scripted. It's where you have to wait like a year or so just to get the winning numbers to get the jackpot. But the game itself has a little secret. It remembers what day you check the Happy Lucky Lottery. And if the console date doesn't match with the time, so per se, you're to go backwards in time and check the Happy Lucky Lottery. If you had checked it before on a future date, Nintendo would punish you for doing that.
Kind of did the same thing with Animal Crossing. If you changed the date, you had that mole that came up and just chatted your ear off forever.
Well, no. Resetti himself is actually a character who hates it when you don't save. In fact, Resetti himself was made to be a counter to resetting the game because his purpose was to waste your time.
Yeah. The last game for the console was Madden NFL 08.
Why the flip is it a soccer game?
It's not. It's an NFL game.
National Football League.
Yeah. American football. It was released August 14th, 2007. However, first-party development had ended 6 months before that. And the Madden games were epic, all the way up through. Madden NFL games were always amazing. They were always fun to play and had all kinds of features that's why it's become such a huge series, and every year there's a Madden NFL game.
Ironically enough, yearly games he ended up being a funny point.
They still do it with NBA and Golf and
WWE. Although ironically enough, WWE has a habit of releasing games ahead of time, like 2024 or on 2023.
But that is all the information we have for you for the GameCube. I do want to ask that you take a minute, check out our channels. We have several of them. ACMS Gaming can be found on YouTube. CoolDan1211 can be found on YouTube. I have several channels, Super Shay Tutorials on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, I got it. Also, you could check out Sarcasm Network. We do videos of stupid opinions to the stupid laws in America.
On the internet.
Yeah, on the internet. And they are absolutely a blast to do. In addition, we also have Geekosity Podcast, which we do, where we play geeky games and talk about geeky things and all that kind of good stuff. It's a blast. And me and my boys, we rip on each other the entire time. It's hilarious.
We seem to be ahead of schedule, so why don't we go on to the next console?
We might. Yeah, we'll do that for the upcoming podcast.
No, we barely even have an hour, let alone 30 minutes.
We have 25 minutes.
So why don't we just go ahead and schedule?
Let me finish the all of our channels, because we still have to promote Shay Girl, right?
Yeah, I know.
And Shay Girl can be found on all platforms as well. And lastly, we have our own website, which is 2 shayproductions.com. So make sure to check out all of those channels. You'll find all of the stuff that we do, between ACMS and Cool Dan and myself. We have Super Shay Gaming. They do their own gaming channels. I do martial arts weaponry. We have something for just about everybody. Make sure you check it out.
Did you promote Super Shay tutorials?
He just did.
Also, ACMS, can you be patient?
No, like,
You're being serious, I get it.
we hardly even have an hour, so let's make use of the time and go on to the next console.
What do you think, Super Shay?
Personally, I think we ought to do it for the following week.
Awesome. Well, anyways, talk to you guys all later.
Final thoughts?
Moth? Great final thoughts.
Bozini.
What did I say?
Moss.
Awesome. Talk to you all later. Bye.